Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is how Skip Bayless almost dumped Shannon Sharpe for Stephen A. Smith. So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, our Dreamerspro Max premium community is online, which is linked in the description below. You can go there, start basketball discussions, start debates, consume original content that you'll get nowhere else, be able to go post game with us and chat after games, something that's going to be especially useful after games where guys want to take questions where we can just go live, and so many other things. So if you guys want to check that out, it's in the description below. Get 7 days of free access. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it once you check it out. Anyway, let me get into the content here. So y'all know who Skip Bayless is. We all know who Skip Bayless is, but today I'm gonna do a little bit of a thorough kind of breakdown of who Skip Bayless is. So Skip Bayless is an American sports columnist. He's been in the business for decades now. Skip Bayless, last time I checked, Skip Bayless is actually 69 years old. So he's a very seasoned guy. He even covered the Chicago Bulls. So he's been around the NBA for not just the NBA, the sports for a very long time. Been around the Dallas Cowboys. We all know he's a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. He knows Jerry Jones, wrote a book about him. So Skip Bayless has been around the sports business for a very long time. I originally stumbled upon him on ESPN with the original show he was on called Cold Pizza. That was the first show that I really saw him on, which was a debate show with a moderator. And then you could see it if you guys are going to search for it on YouTube, you can see in his early days it was a bit more raw, not as refined as it ultimately ended up being. And then that show eventually turned into ESPN First Take. Now on ESPN First Take, they have so many memorable moments, especially earlier in the show. Then he would bring on different guests like Stephen A. Smith. There was this big this episode where him and Jalen Rose got into a spat, and Jalen Rose said some personal things about Skip Bayless and they both of them went back and forth to the point where Stephen A. Smith, when he came on the show, he kind of had to be like the peacemaker on TV. Like it was one of those crazy shows. But then Skip Bayless was very, very raw. And then ultimately they moved into the studio that we all remember them, and the show just really took off with him and Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith, who is very entertaining on TV. And then Skip Bayless, who he's entertaining, but I don't think he's there trying to impress people. I think Skip Bayless is just there trying to say his points. A lot of what he says are hot takes, but those hot takes are things that he truly, truly believes. And you can see that him and Stephen A. Smith had great chemistry. It's one of the reasons that was the most popular show on that network by far. ESPN First Take was one of the most popular shows. You will see them travel around the country for different sporting events, like during boxing matches. You see them go to different places for, I think, you see them travel during the Super Bowl. You saw them travel in some cases. Then you saw them travel during the NBA Finals. You see them travel. I remember when the San Antonio Spurs were playing against the Miami Heat, you would see them covering games in Miami. Then you saw them covering games in San Antonio, Texas. So the show was very, very popular. But ESPN had a reputation of being tight-fisted, that basically they didn't, a lot of the personalities that were on that network felt like they were being underpaid. And another thing that Skip Bayless felt like at a certain point they started to try to put a muzzle on him for various reasons, because Skip Bayless can be very outspoken and he doesn't like to bite his tongue for no one, right? That's just a thing about him. You'll see Stephen A. Smith usually before he starts to criticize guys, you'll see him kind of say, very accomplished person, X, Y, and Z. And Skip Bayless wouldn't even go into that. He'll say it. He said a number of times, I don't really care. He would just tell you exactly what he feels. So after a while, I think his contract came to an end in 2015, and they were having negotiations at the time. And the number that Skip Bayless wanted, the figure that he wanted, ESPN wasn't willing to match. ESPN simply wasn't meant in the match, but Fox Sports, FS1 at the time, they were able to give Skip Bayless the number that he wanted, and he ultimately left the network. He ultimately left ESPN to go sign with Fox Sports, and he signed at the time a four-year deal that was worth $20 million plus a $4 million signing bonus, which means that he was earning roughly about, $6 million a year for those 4 years. And then once he left the show, ESPN First Take, it left Stephen A. Smith on the show. And then at that time, they had to look for a replacement. There were so many names flying around, but ultimately, they decided to go with Max Kellerman, right? But at that point, Stephen A. Smith was the clear star of the show, and Stephen A. Smith has kind of reiterated that reality or that fact to Max Kellerman at various moments during during different debates that they would have on the show. So Skip Bayless ended up going to FS1, and he was able to get a much more lucrative deal. Now, some of you guys may be thinking, damn, $24 million for 4 years, $6 million a year. That's a lot of money. Now, if you guys go in and really do some research and look at the actual numbers of people that actually watch these shows, there are people on YouTube, believe it or not, there are people on YouTube that actually get more viewership every single month than a lot of these networks do. This is just the reality. Think of a Vlad TV, for example. Vlad TV is getting 55 to 60 million views a month, right? But obviously they publish a lot of pieces of content, but they're getting about 50 to 60 million views a month. ESPN is not getting those type of numbers. However, the way it works on TV is that TV, these networks charge advertisers. I think the standard number that they use is $1 per viewer. $1 per viewer. That's what they charge advertisers. So if you have a show, for example, let's say General Hospital or something like this, and that show brings in, let's say they have 5 episodes a week. Yeah, it's usually 5 days a week. Let's say each episode brings in 3 million people. So that means they're charging advertisers they're basically each one of those viewers are worth $3 million. So they're making about $3 million a day. That's $12 million a week. And then they're making $48 million a month because they charge, $1 per viewer to advertisers. Whereas on YouTube, for example, although YouTube is able to garner, creators are able to garner a much larger audience on YouTube. The reality is that YouTube's revenue model compared to TV is a joke. YouTube says, no, we're not gonna do a per viewer. We're gonna do per 1,000 viewer. And in that instance, then the creator is getting the short end of the stick. As y'all know, towards the end of his contract, because remember he signed a 4-year deal and now we're in 2021, negotiation time was coming up, and I wasn't following this story. But I'm not sitting here following tracking Skip Bayless's contract. Like, okay, Skip Bayless contract with Fox Sports expires in 20. Who cares? Like that's not something I would keep track of. But anyway, about 4 or 5 days ago, a story came out that Skip Bayless ended up re-signing with Fox FS1, with Fox Sports. Now, what also came out in that story was that there was a possibility that he almost ended up signing or going back to ESPN to reunite with Stephen A. Smith. Now that was the part of the article that caught my attention, and I read this on Yahoo Finance. We can also link it in the description below if you guys want to go check out the article for yourself. But ESPN wanted to reunite Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith, who is by far the biggest personality on ESPN, the face of that network, and Skip Bayless is the face of those Fox Sports easily. I think so, at least. They wanted to reunite these two guys, and the idea was for them to create a show together that they could offer exclusively to people on ESPN Plus, right? It was a show that was going to be exclusive to that platform, ESPN Plus. Now, some people are on, I don't know, ESPN Plus has about 5 to 6 million monthly users on that platform. So that was the reason they were trying to do. I think they were trying to increase viewership or maybe retain audiences, or maybe just bring them a different type of content. That's kind of what the whole Dreamerspro Max thing is kind of modeled after. Obviously, we're in a very, 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 very early stage of doing something like that. But the idea behind it is you create content that you own. That's the one thing about ESPN. All of the content that they have, they own it, right? That's one of the things that separates us from other creators out there. Some people have asked the question, well, why don't you guys put highlights in the back of your videos? Why don't you put a green screen, or why don't you all do all of these different things? Let me just quickly touch on this for a moment, since we're kind of talking about the business aspect of all of this. Let me just quickly give you guys the philosophy behind this. Number one, a lot of that content that you see out there by bigger channels like House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, Chris B. Smooth, some of these guys, the bigger guys that I'm sure all of you know. Yes, we used to do that initially when we started on YouTube, right? Because we didn't understand who we wanted to be as a company, as a media company, and to a large amount of people, that type of content is what's the word? It's very enjoyable to watch. It's easy to consume. Because that's what they're used to seeing that. Because a lot of YouTubers, basketball YouTubers, that's how they started off. The only problem with that is, number one, you don't own that content, right? All of that stuff that you see, the highlights and all of that stuff, that belongs to the NBA. They own that content. So why would I put in all of this work just to go out there and try to and then go and show somebody else's content that they already own? Number one. So number one, that's the first problem. Number two, you're not unique by doing that, because everybody's doing that. So if you have 5 basketball channels and all 5 of them are talking about different things, but they all using basketball highlights, what's the difference? Number one. Number two, you can't connect with people like that. People looking at highlights, you don't connect with people. I was checking for, I watched Chris B. Smooth at times, but I never seen this dude, so I don't know what he looks like. Number two, so I think it's harder to connect with audiences like that. We also notice that the biggest players in this industry are people you can see, right? You can look at Shannon Sharpe, you can look at Skip Bayless. We don't need to trick you to watch our content. It doesn't need to be a gimmick. I don't need to hypnotize you for you to watch. It's all about, do you enjoy the person that you're watching? Do you enjoy the arguments? And it's a very simple answer, yes or no. And once people make that decision, then it's there. So I believe in owning your own content, right? When we create our website, we can migrate all of our content because we own 100% of it, not YouTube, not NBA, and all of this different. And finally, you have to pay people. You have to pay these companies to license their content, right? All of these companies do. You have to pay the NFL if you want to use NFL highlights. And the NFL even said that you can't even use their highlights on YouTube. You can repurpose their content on other platforms, but you can't repurpose it on YouTube. And the NBA allows you to do that. So many channels do that, these highlight channels. It makes money, but it's not something you own. And you don't own any of that content. So if a deal goes awry or something goes wrong, then you're out of the loop. So what happens if they don't decide to what is it? What if time comes for you to renegotiate for a new contract? You have an audience that you build of 2 million members that are used to consuming this type of content. You go up and then they're like, we don't want to renew your contract for other reasons, or they want to go with another channel. Then what? What do you do? Then you now have to learn how to make your own content, when that's what you should have been doing in the first place. But Bleacher Report kind of understands how to do that very well, because they have a nice blend of original products, these shows like Game of Zones and others, and then they have a combination of highlights, right? So they're two different ways to approach the same thing. Now, obviously, doing highlight content, you can grow your channel a lot faster because it's more searchable and it's easier to consume, because people are always searching for highlights. But I think it's very hard to distinguish yourself doing that. And quite frankly, you don't need to do that. You can look at other people like Bill Simmons, who was the founder of The Ringer, and look at Ben Shapiro. These are all original content creators, and they own 100% of their content. So it's not something that you need to do. It may take you a longer time to get to where you need to get to, but ultimately your audience will understand what they're getting, that they're buying into the brand that you have created. It takes a little bit more work. You probably have to suffer a little longer, but in the end, it'll pay off because people know exactly what they're buying into. And that's why I believe these guys on TV work. You're looking at the people, you're not being hypnotized with highlights. Some of them use a green screen. Usually they use studio. So hopefully that kind of explains that. Anyway, so they try to do this deal. And as I was reading this article on Yahoo Finance, I was like, what? They were thinking about bringing these two guys together. How does that work? And then, but ultimately, I think the figure that ESPN offered Skip Bayless, they offered him a bunch of different packages. One of them was to do an exclusive show. Another one was they could still do their show. They could still do their show on their respective networks and then collaborate on the show together. They tried that as well. But the number that ESPN ultimately offers Skip Bayless was between $26 to $31 million. ESPN makes a ton of money. I'm not even going to get into the amount of money ESPN makes. You're talking about billions of dollars. They make a ton of money. It's not even funny. But anyway, Skip Bayless ended up not signing that deal, and Fox Sports ended up offering him a $32 million deal, in which for 4 years that he ended up signing, earning him about $8 million per year, so earning him about $2 million more per annum. So he decided to stay with Fox Sports, and I think also he's going to be getting his own individual show. If you guys noticed, I think it was yesterday or so, Skip Bayless did a live on YouTube, like a stream, and he prepped it by saying something like troll Skip Bayless or something when people get to ask him questions, and then he just answers all of your questions. What they're doing is they're trying to test if this type of content is something that people want to see. Then they're going to ultimately do it, just like when they started Undisputed with Skip and Shannon, and you saw them bring in Nick Wright and Chris Carter originally on the show. They were trying to see how these people would play on TV, how they rate, and then ultimately they gave them their own show. So that's what happened. Same thing with Chris Broussard, and now Chris Broussard is on The Odd Couple with him and Rob Parker. They have a show on Fox Sports Radio. So they do all of these different things to see how people are going to react to it. But while all of this was happening, the one thought that was percolating in the back of my mind was, what about Shannon Sharpe? What if Skip Bayless decided to go sign or to go back to ESPN? What happens to Shannon Sharpe in that scenario? Was he about to just leave Shannon Sharpe high and dry for Skip Bayless? Because Shannon Sharpe would have been the odd man out. Now, Shannon Sharpe is very entertaining on his own. He has his own show called, Club Shay Shay, and it's more of an interview show. It's not like what we do here. It's not like the Dreamerspro Show where we're analyzing sports on the daily. It's not a show. It's just like an interview program, like a podcast. Like pretty much every other podcast out there, you just see people interviewing each other. That's pretty much what it is. So he has his own show there. But I was wondering if Skip Bayless decided to leave, then Shannon Sharpe would have been the odd man out. Now, obviously, he didn't leave, so we don't know what would have happened. But to me, I think he could have been an odd man out, but we will never know because he ended up signing, staying with Fox Sports 1. So what I want to know is, what do you guys think about this entire thing? Do you think that he almost dumped Shannon Sharpe for Stephen A. Smith? Do you think that was part of his consideration to stay? Do you think it was about the additional $2 million a year that made him decide to stay with FS1? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoy the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Again, if you enjoy content like this and you want to support the channel and help us build our own ESPN with our Dreamerspro Max, be sure to check out the Dreamerspro Max in the description below and get 7 days of free access. And again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the next video that we have coming up on the channel. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.